How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Getting Candid. My name is Marquise, and on today's episode, we have Taylor Gordon. She's a certified holistic health coach, and she will be joining us to talk about her journey with healing and holistic healing and all the good things. I don't want to steal your shine, from kind of touching on your story. So yeah, if you definitely kind of want to give a quick background of who you are, that would be great.
Sure. Thanks for having me. So quick background, I always am like, okay, where do I start with this? I am a certified holistic health and wellness coach now, which all kind of sprung from my own journey with chronic pain, autoimmune disease, and kind of working my way through that a bit on my own and figuring out what worked for me.
Mhm.
Um, I started experiencing this like full body pain around the age of 13. I was a pretty high level athlete. I was a gymnast. I was on track to like do all of these things. And all of a sudden, my body, well, seemingly all of a sudden, just kind of started experiencing this widespread pain. And throughout my time, I didn't, of course, understand what was going on. And at this time, no one was really speaking about wellness in the way that they are now.
Mhm.
We didn't have like the same resources that we have now. And I won't say that they weren't there. I just say that we weren't really speaking about them.
Right.
So I started to kind of like reach out. I finally, shared with my family and with my parents around 15, hey, I'm experiencing this pain. I don't know what's going on. This doesn't seem normal.
Mhm.
Can we do something about it? And essentially, we started going down that journey, and I know we'll get into that a little bit later, but we started going down that path. And some odd years later, I was able to find relief through, more functional medicine methods in a holistic way. And from there, it started to really spark my interest and spark more of my like love for wanting to be able to share this with other people.
Mhm.
And so now here I am at 30 and, finally feeling like I'm able to really stand fully in that space and in that power of really being able to, my dream has always been to advocate for others so that they didn't have to go through the line of fire that I had to go through,
Mhm.
for 15 years.
Right.
And I'm really thankful to be able to do that today and help others who are experiencing that same type of chronic pain, invisible illness, and really help them reconnect to their bodies and learn that they are trustworthy and understand that like we have advocacy over them. And it's a really cool, it's a really rewarding space to be in. So yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. You before we kind of jump into more of the interview, you said that you had mentioned it to your parents. How did they receive it, when you approached them about how you were feeling and just how your body was reacting to certain things?
Thankfully they have like I'm really, really blessed
Mhm.
in that space. They have always been 1000% on my side.
Cool.
They never questioned me. They never made me feel like I was crazy, or anything of that manner. They listened to
Right.
me and they really did everything they could with the means and the resources that we had to just help me along the path. So they were like phenomenal in that space and still are to this day.
So I'm 32, and I realized that after I turned 30, now that I'm 2 years into 30, I feel like my body is just, it feels different from 20. So, now that you're 30, do you feel like your body feels different from 20? Like, I remember growing up, everyone would say, oh, when you're 30, you'll feel it, you'll feel, but I do feel it now. I wake up and I'm like, wow, my back hurts, or, my shoulder might hurt for no apparent reason at all. And I'm like, is it just because I'm 30? What is this? I don't know. I don't know.
I definitely feel the difference. Like
Yeah.
it definitely feel like my whole body as just like as a whole. I'll wake up or I'll look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, like that's different,
Right.
I just,
Yeah, I
it's
get
not
it.
the same. I just think that like we get to shift with it, you know. And I think for so long we heard this narrative that like you're supposed to fight it and try to stay in this I don't know whether it's like stay young or whatever, but I think if we just learn to like give it what it needs, it's like we'll be all right, you know. But it's gonna be
Yeah.
different.
Right, right. And I mean, that's true. That kind of aligns with something that I want to talk about. So, your story is aligned with a lot of athletes, and, you feel pain, you push through it. That's kind of the narrative or kind of the mantra that athletes have. And it wasn't
Yeah.
until, like you said, you were 15, you decided to seek professional medical help, which ultimately led to you being diagnosed with lupus. And then the pain persisted into your young adult years, and you sought out, functional medicine doctor. Can you kind of just speak to that experience, just as far as finding and seeking someone and things that you have tried that didn't work, but what works for you now?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, so like I was saying in the beginning, I was a gymnast from the age of like 5 or 6.
Hmm.
So I was on the track of like, I was a high impact athlete where it was like there is no stopping. You're not trying to find what works for you. You're doing
Hmm.
what you're told. You don't complain. You push through. Pain is weakness leaving the body. Like
Hmm.
that's it. It's
Hmm.
just one track. It's very linear. And so by the time I was starting to experience this pain, I was so fearful because I was like, I never learned, and this was, like no one's fault, but I just never learned. I wasn't taught like how to say, hey, this hurts, or
Hmm.
like, hey, this is working for me. I can't push through this. And so I tried to, continue to for a really, really long time. And it's one of those things that, like, as I've gotten older, I've realized how toxic that mentality is
Oh, without a
for
doubt.
us bodies.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was like the timeline was around 15. I said something. I sought out a medical professional. She was a specialist in the field, or so we thought. And she helped me a little bit. And then when I was able to see a different doctor, he essentially walked in the room and kind of just like poked and prodded at me and said, hey, I figured out what's wrong with you. You have lupus. And imagine this 15-year-old sitting here with no warmth, no care.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just like I'm scared out of my mind. I just remember everything else after that kind of going black. I remember looking at my parents and they were trying to figure out like what he was saying.
Hmm.
Um, and because that was only associated with one thing at that time,
Right.
and so we moved through that. I eventually kind of started to seek out more help because I realized like that can't be it, like I have to really understand what's going on here in my body. um I made it through college between 2008 and 2012, and all throughout my college years, I still didn't have any answers. My digestive tract was completely depleted. I was not eating. I could not keep anything down, to the point where my roommates were like worried that I had like an eating disorder or something else was happening, because I couldn't explain what was going on. I
Hmm.
just knew that everything I put in my body made me feel more and more ill.
Hmm.
And it was excruciating. And so by the time I graduated college in 2012, I was at the point where I was like, something's got to give. I have to do something different. Thankfully, I was put in contact with my current doctor, Dr. Wellhausen, and she's a functional medicine doctor out of Redlands, California.
Okay.
And she changed my life. It was the first doctor that actually listened to me. It was the first doctor who did not make me feel crazy. It was the first doctor who didn't just come in, shouting out diagnosis and just trying to tell me what was wrong with me.
Right.
But instead really wanted to listen to me and really wanted to understand, like, what happened prior to this, what happened as a child, what was she like, kind of doubled as my therapist in the same way. And that's when I started to understand like the connection between the traumas that our body endure and the pain that later manifests through it as we get older. And how if we don't have the resources to really heal through those things or really understand where they settle in our body, like on a cellular level, what that, like, they will find room and space to then come out in a way that is really, really painful.
Yeah.
uh, and so, after I found her, it, like I said, it changed everything. I started to take a look at my lifestyle as a whole. The foods that I was eating was a massive part of, being able to kind of like rejuvenate my body again and healing my gut and going in a way where she calls it like inflating all four tires before we actually are able to get the car running. Like, we
Mhm.
have to inflate one at a time and really see, okay, what does this side need? What does this side need? We may have to give and take, but eventually we'll get to the point where we can put gas in it and it can start rolling.
Mhm.
um and I mean, yeah, it changed everything for me. And from that point forward, I really started to take my health into my own hands and really pay attention to the messages that were being sent. I really started to pay attention to my emotional health, and how that, plays a huge part in my physical health, my spiritual health,
Right.
and everything. And that's when the holistic, like, space became real for me. It was like, oh, it's not just about the food that I'm eating. It's about the people I keep in my space. It's
Mhm.
about my grounding. It's
Mhm.
about my family. It's
Yeah.
about, my relationships and my communication. Am I speaking up? Am I like pouring into myself in a way that feels nourishing instead of just trying to like beat myself over the head with making sure that I'm restrictive with my diet? It's a little bit of everything. So
Yeah. I
that's
think
what for me.
yeah, I think kind of what you spoke to just about being able to advocate for yourself, and your own health. A lot of times people won't they won't be as prone to speak up and say, "Hey, I'm feeling this way." If they're, for instance, in your case, an athlete, a lot of times people think pain is part of the process, but I
Yeah.
think, self advocacy for your health and just your own well being is very important. And also, to finding someone, how you found your doctor and she made you feel, that what you were feeling was real and that you weren't crazy. I just through kind of my own discovery have found that a lot of times people can feel that way when they do seek professional help, and then that and oftentimes will just put them in a bit of a more negative space. So the fact that you were able to find that, although through trial and error, it is really good that you were able to find that.
Definitely.
So yeah, I mean, you use the term live in my body, in previous interviews from what I had seen. And you often speak to the disconnect between your brain and your body. And you just did briefly, about how you emotionally feel and how it affects your body. How did you build and strengthen that relationship? What was the shift that happened inside of you, to make that happen?
Yeah. Um, a couple things. I think so. The first time I actually, I was thinking back to this, I was thinking, kind of like, when did I first hear this term live in my body? And it was actually when I was in college, before I really had any answers. I was actually a music major. So I studied vocal performance through my undergrad. And with that came my voice teacher and vocal lessons. And so this was the first time I really got connected with my breath and
Okay.
understanding how to use it and how powerful it is.
Mhm.
And at the time, of course, I wasn't necessarily relating it to where I am now. But looking back, my vocal coach was the first person who shared with me. She said, I know you're experiencing all this pain. I know you don't have any answers, but I really want to give you a tool that will help you live in your body again.
Mhm.
And that was directly correlated to the way that I was able to use my breath. And now when I think about that, and when I think about the how powerful it is and how much I speak to people about using that tool and how it's like the absolute best free, like, anti-anxiety medication that we could have that we
Yeah.
don't have to pay for. It's really cool when I think back to like that connection, and I'm
Mhm.
so thankful for hearing that phrase because it was really something that stuck with me. And so using that moving forward, kind of like I was sharing before, when I started to realize that my emotional health had so much to do with the way that my body was reacting and responding to things. I kind of was going down this path where, like, I'll never forget driving to my doctor's appointment. This was a couple years into like my maintenance phase. So I was feeling better, like for all
Mhm.
intents and purposes, I was functioning, in a much different way than I had been the years prior. But I was still in this place where I was like, something's got to give. Like, this cannot be my life week in and week out, like where I'm in this routine, I'm eating the foods, I'm taking the supplements, I'm clearing out my space, but like something's still missing. And it hit me where I was like, I am in this space where I am trying to help others and help myself to continue to like listen to their bodies. Like, I'm advocating for this massively in this space. Like, listen to your body. It has these beautiful messages for you. And then I stopped and I really broke down and I was like, wait a minute. How can I listen to this like vessel that I've lost complete trust in?
Mhm.
Like, I don't have any trust in my body. I feel betrayed by it. I feel like it's just like it's done the most massive disservice to me in my life. I'm angry. Like, yeah, I'm doing all of the things, but I don't trust my body because for so long, all of the messages I heard were so disconnecting, like so dismantling, and they just are all about like, your body is attacking itself, it's fighting against you, everything you put in, it doesn't know what it is, so you just have to be smarter than it. And it just like, it didn't make any sense to me because I was like, I'm trying to heal this thing that I have no connection to.
Right.
And I'm just thinking that like, if I do the right things over here, somehow magically it'll work and like I'll just be happy and well on this side.
Mhm.
And so the biggest piece for me was really repairing the trust within my body and working through a process in which I kind of like understood that I had to walk myself all the way back to the beginning, understanding that where the pain started to manifest was not actually where the pain started.
Mhm.
It started so far before that. It started on such a deeper level in my mind, body, way like years before it actually came out.
Mhm.
And once I was able to go back and begin to heal those things and stop blaming the pain of where I was at that moment, I was really able to heal like a massive line to get me to the point where then I wasn't just relying on one singular diagnosis, one singular doctor, and I could really heal through it. And then I
Mhm.
could begin to really trust like the messages that my body was sending to me, and then listening to it became something that was like the most beautiful process ever because I then understood that I could trust the messages that it was sending to me. So that
Yeah.
was the biggest catalyst in like, I think, like really like upping
Mhm.
my healing process or journey.
Definitely. I think something that I've realized, even just as I've gotten older, is some of the things that you carry over from your childhood, be it if it's pain, childhood trauma, whatever, and how much it can affect you in your adult life. When you're in your 20s, you don't care, you don't have a care in the world. But as you get older, you start to understand how kind of navigate different relationships in your life, either if it's professional or personal, and just how you respond and react to certain things. And a lot of times it traces back to your childhood and things that you had dealt with. So, be it if it's how you're feeling, if it was emotional trauma, whatever. I think being able to understand that you had to address those and you understood kind of the ecosystem that it had created within your body, that's amazing. I think that that's awesome.
Thank you.
um
Yeah.
so I think that like resources for chronic pain, or chronic illness can often be found, through building community. And that's part of the reason why we do Getting Candid, is because we want to highlight different stories, that people have. Um, because a lot of times, people don't have that outlet to, just speak or hear someone speak about something that they may have went through or may be going through. But what's the emphasis that you would put on building a circle, or at least connecting with individuals who are on a similar pain journey as yourself or anyone else?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's huge, and it's something that I unfortunately, like, um I don't think I put enough emphasis on,
Hmm.
like, until recently.
Okay.
And I think I was always a person who was just kind of like I'm the oldest child. I've always just kind of done the thing and like gotten it done and figured it out on my own. And like, yes, my parents are great, and there's still that level of just like, just do it and get it done. Because if you don't do it, no one else will, right? Like
Right. Right.
there's this whole mindset around it. And so that carried over into a lot of like the healing space for me too, because I think for a long time I was like ashamed of the pain that I was experiencing, and I had a lot of like guilt around it. And so I didn't really want to speak about it, even to the point where like I didn't really even want to like share about it through my health coaching services, which is crazy to me because I'm like, that's the whole reason why I do what I do.
Right.
And so once I was able to kind of like go back and like heal that wound, it now allows me to share freely. And I feel like now that I'm able to share freely, I'm able to really connect with people like in a really authentic and vulnerable way.
Mhm.
And that brings, like it brings your community to you. And I think it's really cool. I mean, it's so important. Thankfully, I've had a supportive family. I know that that's not everyone's experience.
Mhm.
And if that isn't, your experience, then I would highly, highly, highly recommend like, don't be ashamed, reach out for support, whether it starts with one person. You never know who that one person is going to lead you to. But just know that like by reaching out, you will truly, truly gain a sense of like feeling heard and valued and understood in a way that it changes the trajectory of your healing also, because now you're not second guessing what you're experiencing. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, I agree. I think community is so important, because you have the opportunity to rally and motivate and thrive off one another. And, when you don't have that,
Yeah.
you kind of feel like you are in a hole and you're alone in this fight.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's no fun. We have so many tools to be connected nowadays, so I think if you don't have that immediate support group around you, kind of what you spoke to, be it if it's your family or your immediate friend group, um, going out and seeking, just the community to help you get through whatever you're going through will help you make huge strides in your healing journey. Like, insane.
Huge, huge. And I mean, it's cool too, even with, with the app, like with
Mhm.
the Curable app and things like that. Like a lot of people think, well, how will I meet people or how will I do this? Sometimes it can just start with you like reaching out and finding resources that
Mhm.
speak to you. And then you never know who you'll be able to connect with, or what you'll be able to hear from someone else's story or someone else's journey that will just help to like ground you a little bit more. So yeah, I mean, the resources and the possibilities are endless these days. So thankful for that, because 10 years ago, that was not the case.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. A couple years ago, there weren't a lot of resources for many things, so I get that. So we often hear the saying, you are what you eat, and you definitely spoke to how your digestive tract was just all out of sync. But to your experience, you've come to the understanding that what you eat is a reflection of how you're nourishing other spaces in your life. So what is the relationship that you have found between food and how it affects other areas of your life?
Yeah, this is a big one. I mean, this was probably like one of the biggest spaces of healing for me, and
Mhm.
something that I just like, gush over and I love to talk about and help other people with too. Um, because a lot of people will come to me and they'll say like, I just want to learn how to eat. Just like tell me, give me the recipes, you know?
Okay.
And I will often stop and say, okay, but like, you know what to eat. Like your
Mhm.
body knows what it needs. If the only problem was us not knowing what to eat, then like it wouldn't be a problem,
Right.
right? Um, and I remember going through my training in IIN when I was working through my health coaching program. And I remember one of the instructors saying, like, if somebody comes and sits down to talk and consult with you, and they, and it's an extreme example, but they have a black eye, and you're trying to give them recipes for broccoli and kale salad, like, it's not going to do any good,
Mhm.
you know? Essentially, like, that's not the nourishment they need at that moment. um and so what is the nourishment that you need in this moment, you know, like how far beyond food does this thing really go?
Mhm.
And I've just really come to understand, I think one thing that was really like one phrase that I love is the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. You know, like everything touches everything. And so I often share with people that if I look at the way that you are eating, I can probably look at the way you communicate. I can look at the way your relationships go.
Mhm.
It'll be pretty clear to me the way in which your work ethic is. Like, none of it is separate, you know? This holistic way of thinking is really to come to understand that it all intersects and one really does nourish the other. So when I share with people that the way you eat is a reflection of the way you're nourishing your whole body, it's because if we are actually pouring in to our bodies like on a soul level, there are certain gaps that can only be filled by soul nourishing, um you know, things, for
Mhm.
lack of a better word. And they can look like I mean, there's such a like plethora of things that we can look at, but for those specific areas in our life, food is not going to heal them.
Right.
You know, like food can be a part of this journey, but food is not the answer for that. And for so many of us, we use food in one way or the other, whether that be for discipline or a reward. And by that point, your body isn't actually even able to like digest it in the way that it understands that it's going to fuel and support you. And so we're doing ourselves such a disservice by you know, not actually taking a look at what are the other gaps, what is my body actually asking for in this moment, rather than what my brain is trying to convince me that I need, which
Mhm.
most of the time looks like something in you know, in the regards of food. And so if we really take a moment to ask ourselves, like, what is my body actually asking for when I'm sitting at my desk and I'm working and I'm stressed out? Does it need me to like stretch for 5 minutes? Do I
Mhm.
need some water? Should I take a walk? Like, should I put on a song and have like a solo dance party? Like, do I just need to move my body a little bit? You know, like, what is my body actually asking for to be nourished in this moment? And once we get to that point, we no longer feel the pressure of trying to use food to fill those spaces.
Okay.
Um, and then food just becomes something that we get to enjoy and that fuels and supports us and is like just another part of our life rather than running our life.
Mhm. What's a specific dish that what's like your go-to dish, be it if you're not feeling the best or like if you're feeling down, like what's like your dish that helps uplift you, like inside and outside?
Like
Like what would you go to?
my go-to dish. Oh, people ask me this question all the time, and I don't know why it makes me so nervous.
Because
It's
people are
so
gonna judge you
weird.
based on what you eat. They're like, oh wait, she eats that
I
one.
know, I know.
Yeah.
Something that makes me feel good. I mean, I love pastas. Like,
Yeah.
it's something that makes me feel really good.
Yeah.
There is going to be gluten free because I have a gluten allergy, so people try to make fun of me for it, but I'm like, listen, it still makes me feel really good.
Yeah.
You know, I don't restrict myself from food anymore, and I'm so thankful to be like free from that. So Yeah, I love, or I'll make like this really amazing salmon dish.
Mhm.
And
Love
it's just
salmon.
like me up on the inside.
Yeah, yeah. I used to do a lot of work in the um, gluten and grain-free space, and it's amazing how many options are available now compared to what wasn't available, and how many people had to give up eating pizza or pasta or whatever, and they can now enjoy those specific foods, be it if they had celiac disease or whatever. So yeah, yeah, pasta is an amazing go-to.
It's a great go-to, it's something that feels good and I don't feel guilty about it because I'm like, I'm making a choice for myself and I'm gonna enjoy it. I always tell people like if you're gonna make the choice to have something, you better enjoy it. Like
Hmm.
otherwise what's the point? And that's a lot of the work we get to do too, is just like if you're going to make the choice, like don't just brush this off as an indulgence. Like make the choice and enjoy it and then make another choice that will help to fuel and support you just as
Hmm.
well. Enjoy it all.
Definitely. So lastly, now that you're a certified health coach, what are kind of the three biggest takeaways that you would have for someone who is about to embark on, their healing journey or their chronic pain liberation, so to speak?
Yeah, I think that one thing that I would say is to understand that, and this takes like a bit of expansion because initially hearing it, it can feel a little triggering. But if we can understand that the pain that we're experiencing can really be our biggest gateway to like whole life healing, it's
Hmm.
something that's liberating. I understand that it's real. I understand that it's painful. I understand that a lot of people have made you feel like it's not really there. And I also understand that your body is really, truly fighting for you.
Hmm.
Um, it's fighting for you. It's not fighting against you. That's an affirmation that I give myself on a daily basis, is that even when I have those moments of flares or things come up where I'm like, "Ooh, I'm just not feeling that well today," I still understand and like continue to remind myself and affirm my body that it's fighting for me. It's not fighting against me. So whatever is showing up is really allowing me the space to heal another area. So um, that's one big thing that I would share and that helps me. Um, Another thing, and I think we touched on this earlier, was advocacy. Um, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. Um, I'm thankful that I had a support system to help advocate for me as well. And also, in that, there were moments where even they don't understand.
Hmm.
And so I really had to step up and say, no, you know, I, I'm not crazy. This is real. I understand that it may be connected to a long line of different things that I have experienced in my life. Nonetheless, what I'm experiencing right now is still real. And just just know that it is okay to speak up. And if you go somewhere and you find a doctor and you don't connect with them and you don't like what they're saying, don't be afraid to find somebody else.
Hmm.
Like it's your body. um you have autonomy over your body. For so long we've felt, especially in this community, that we don't, and that our body's just doing whatever it wants, and so we have to listen to what anybody tells us, and you don't. You have autonomy over your body. You can advocate for yourself, and if you feel in that moment that you can't, reach out to someone that can help give you that affirmation to be able to do what you need to do to find the right person that's really going to listen to you.
Okay.
um, so that's huge in this journey. And then another thing that I would say that's a little more like practical is keep track of your pain cycles. Like really keep track of them when you're starting to experience something that doesn't feel, good in your body. Write it down. Write down what you're experiencing around it. Like write down what's going on emotionally around you. You may not be completely conscious or aware of what's taking place, but if you can get down like what you're experiencing in all of the areas of your life, there's 4 different areas that I often share with people, that are our biggest pillars, and that's your relationships, that's your career, your spiritual grounding, and your physicality. And
Mm.
so when you start to feel like pain cycles come up and around, take a look at those four areas and really start to get down on paper, like, how am I showing up in these areas? What are they doing for me? Are they pouring into me? Are there areas in these spaces specifically where I can either, like, take away because something is actually taking away from me, or where I can pour in a little bit more? Like, keep track of what's really happening around you while you're experiencing, any of these pain cycles that are coming up, because that'll really help you to be able to advocate for yourself when you need to, whether it be with medical professionals or family or friends, when you need to explain something or whatever that may look like. So, don't be afraid to get those things down. And that really begins to help with the cycle of trust that you can build with your body as well, because your body is now taking that information and understanding that, wow, she's listening to me. He's listening to me. They're listening to me. And, you know, they're taking note as to what is happening. And so now those messages will continue to come through more and more clear. And once they're to that point, it's like, it makes it so much easier to actually speak out loud what's happening for you. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
I love those, the four pillars. I love those. That's awesome. I believe that a lot of people definitely take away a lot from what you brought up. And yeah, seriously. So I think we're at our time, but I do want to thank you, for just your energy and your commentary around, your life and just this community in general. Is there anything that you want to share as we part, or where people can find you on social media? I'll be sure that I share those also on YouTube and Instagram, but I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to plug anything that you may be working on or what have you.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Mm.
I love Curable. I'm so happy that I found you guys. It was a huge affirmation for me too. So I'm so thankful to be a part of this community now. You can find me at Divinely Wholesome on Instagram and on Facebook. And my email is also divinelywholesome@gmail.com. If you're ever looking to reach out in terms of wanting just support or connection. And every Tuesday on my Facebook and on my Instagram, I go live and I basically just walk us through ways in which we can maintain our wellness. I share at the beginning that it's my space where I really help us to move from trying to manage any sort of diagnosis, space, area, relationship, to really being able to maintain our wellness. And maintaining our wellness really just looks like being able to trust and listen to our bodies. So we really break it down into a way that is inclusive,
Hmm.
so that no one feels like they are not a part of being able to do that for themselves. And then, other than that, I have my one-to-one services that I offer in terms of my health coaching. If you're someone that's experiencing chronic pain or autoimmune invisible illness, I am here, and I absolutely love to be able to help us work through rebuilding the trust in our bodies and really being able to make choices that support the life that we know that we're, deserving of living. So, yeah.
Cool. That's beautiful. I love that. Well, yeah, again, Taylor, thank you so much for your time. Everyone watching us, thank you for, your time and listening to Taylor share her story. If you'd like to learn more, please visit Curable Health at curablehealth.com. And we will see you guys later.